In this session, we're going to learn some of the lessons from lockdown, some of the trials and triumphs from people in different circumstances and how God brought them through and where we're headed in the future.
There was so much fear that it became institutional. There was so much fear that it became acceptable to be afraid. And if you are not expressing your fears, you looked as if you are a hyper faith person, but it became so fearful that to worship God became an issue. And the fear was being channeled out, in all spheres, in everywhere. And when members come to you, you don't know what to tell them because you are equally very much affected. The time that we began, they did the lockdowns, of course, and then we were not meeting for 2 months for us here in Zambia. And in that period, we had to start, how do I get to communicate to the membership? Because most of them were out of employment. Their businesses were not functioning. So they're at home and they can't come to church. So there's no money at home and they can't be visited by their pastor to be, comforted and strengthened. But for most of them, they confessed that their pastoral ministry was inhibited because of the restriction to visit physically. So they couldn't offer the ministry of presence. Even in the time of funerals, you must still stand outside. The person's mourning are inside the house. And for us, it's a bit of more personal contact. You must shake their hand in a certain way because you are mourning with them. For others, you have to hug them and all that. So all that couldn't be done. So the pastor was felt as if he's distant. So they complained about that we can't offer ministry in the way that we feel we fulfilled. We come back feeling empty, like I've not finished, I've not done it,
We had one of our members who 3 years ago was very sick with pneumonia, and I visited him frequently in ICU, and this time wasn't able to see him at all. I want to give kudos to nurses who hold cell phones to people's ears so that I could pray with them over a cell phone. And where that's been able to happen, I've been incredibly grateful. But a number of times, not even that has been possible, and that's been hard. From a personal experience, my own mom, who is a member of our congregation as well, fell on the second day of hard lockdown and shattered her arm. And I wasn't even able to go into the hospital to see her. And that sense of isolation has been very, very tough.
Like, I'll give you a case in point. We were supporting widows every month and the vulnerable with some food packs. I think about 10 families were being supported like that. With the advent of COVID, that program just came to its knees. Oh. And then, we also had the program for the street kids. On a monthly basis, would call them for a meal at church and then minister to them. They take a bath and then, they play at our playback there. There's a little playback for the kids for school. And then we preach the gospel to them. That also stopped because the funding was not there. The offerings and tithes went down. And the school, which has been helping with a lot of funding to the church, also was closed. So we couldn't again get money to run that. The other program that we are doing for the hospital, we have a ward that we adopted for the new babies. Again, it also, collapsed,
Sure.
So, so the only way we could reach to the community has been through radio. Okay. Just like to go and preach. So I've been on about 2 or 3 programs myself to reach out to the community using radio. One of our churches here, the Reformed Church in Zambia, has opened a radio station near our place. So there's that radio station there, but also just secular radio stations that you can go and ask for time and then you're able to speak to the community.
So in the midst of that, I had the virus myself, and then that became a shock, because I don't know where did I contracted it or where did I get it, but I've done by that time many funerals, and then on the 30th of May, I had some symptoms that I was not used to in my body. Most elders could not move. They didn't have permits. They couldn't visit the deceased family. So when it affected me, the whole church, broke down.
Wow.
Because there was no one to move. And then many people, and also at the same time, when I was affected, it also opened the eyes of other people to say, this thing is true. Because a day before I was tested, I was in a meeting. We had a funeral I was supposed to have attended, but I didn't attend that funeral because I had these symptoms. So if I attended that funeral, I'm telling you, it could have been a disaster. And on the same evening of the 30th, I went and tested. I'm telling you, what broke me into pieces is how the results were communicated. Sunday morning, 7:30, on the 31st, I received a call from the hospital here next door to the care hospital in Case River to say you are positive. Sure. And then the whole family, they just broke down into tears, because I think that everybody thought I was going to die. I was in isolation in one of the rooms in the house. My wife and kids would bring food through the window. But when I tested positive, I knew that my mother, there was no way that he would not be tested positive, because I was giving her medication, giving her injections. I insisted that the whole family to be tested. I want to thank the church, the Osoka congregation, the Presbytery of Western Cape's Colin, some of my colleagues in ministry, the general secretary and the moderator, and the whole, because there were people who helped my family to be taken from where they were into testing centers. So I did not do that. So there were people who risk and do that. People who drive my family, and people who drove even my mother, because he's almost 80. So there were people who risk themselves, and people that were communicating. I know Reverend Stephen Nicholson would come and pray by the door. I didn't know that. But the church, the whole church, came in and supported me, and also partner churches, the ecumenical church. I wouldn't say the UPCSA, but there were many people who came in and helped the whole family. Particularly when the results came that 6 of us, my mother, my mother-in-law, my wife, and my daughter, and my niece, were all tested positive. It was difficult in this house because we didn't know what to do. It was difficult but people would come and put food by the doorstep. My son would call it. So it was very difficult. But without the ecumenical partners, the session of Teosoga, we could not have made it.
That's excellent. And I mean, I suppose as a person whose heart is always towards his people in the congregation, giving a lot, it must have been quite difficult, I would imagine, to be completely on the receiving end and needing to receive from others.
Yes, it's like that. But what I would say, I think when I was lying in this room, I've realized the love of my church, the love of my colleagues.
So one of them, they said they also had to strengthen the home Bible study groups to a point of encouraging the families themselves. So for them, they would offer a Bible passage for the families, so that the same passage is discussed in each family. So not through the elders meeting, but encourage the members in their home families to have a Bible study. And there was feedback, very positive feedback. So creating a church in a family. So I thought that was also a very positive thing. So they said they trained some of the members who are available on how to conduct those Bible studies, so that they can, engage even the children in those Bible discussions, for it to be more effective and incorporate everyone in the family.
Is one of the people in my church said they want to plant a church. They don't want to do a small group online on Zoom. They want to plant a church on Zoom. So it's not vastly different from a small group, but it is very different if you approach it in that way, saying this is a church plant. And so we have a church that meets on a Thursday evening. It's called Joy Connect, Jesus, others, yourself, and the Connect. And it is essentially a small group, but it's sometimes up to 25 people. And so we're saying, and we've got people there from Cape Town, from Cato Ridge. So it's a simple thing. It's not a big difference from a small group. Some of the elements are quite unique that they're doing in the service, but it's more about the approach, saying this is not a small group, this is a church. We're going to run it as a church service, but use Zoom as the platform. So that's been a very, very good thing that's come out of this. So effectively, we've planted a church in Mulweni, and we've planted a church in the cloud.
Yeah, but something that I was encouraging the presbytery when we met. We had a smaller executive meeting, was also to encourage, because we can't do ministry in the same way now. There are these restrictions, but then we got to have a more vulnerable community, and the church too was vulnerable economically. So it has also awakened us to say we need to have a business unit of the church. We don't know how to coin that and how to come up with that, but we are seriously looking at ventures the church will be involved in, whereby we can cushion in such moments. Because when I see those vulnerable older members of my congregation and the community, we still meet, and then they were on a monthly, subsidy of some kind of food packs that we're giving them. And I'm asking myself, how are they managing? And through that, we're able to reach to some of them, even they became members actually through that. So we can't do that anymore because we don't have the resource, because the pastor himself is hungry. So it became difficult, so said if we have, we venture into businesses, literally, then they can sustain us in such moments. So for the first time, the board of management, the finance committee had to reorganize its operations, and they had to create a little, subcommittee that will look at how do we invest going forward. And so they are looking at issues of buying land, for investment. But currently, already the process for them to do some serious farming this season is on course to secure fertilizer and all those things.
I think even though we did move forward with trying to keep people connected, I think we could have broadened that a little bit more. Because although the young people were being tended to, as it were, by our YPM team, and our seniors were as well, there was this middle group of maybe 30, 40, 50 somethings who perhaps we didn't connect with as well as we could have. So if we could do it again, I've heard of some congregations who took their whole congregation and divided them up into groups and assigned an elder or a carer to them, and they had like weekly contact. We didn't do that, and I think we would have, if I could do it again, I would probably do that. Not just the seniors and the young people, because the connection was the key, as I said, to being church. I think what this whole lockdown has made us aware of, and I think everyone in the church circle, as it were, is that there are other ways to connect, just like you and I today in this meeting.
Yeah.
And yes, it would have been lovely to have you here in my office, or I'm in yours, and what have you. But there is value in what we're doing, and I wonder whether going forward, even once the pandemic is over, and we could potentially go back to what it was before, whether we should or not. You know, whether we should actually take some of the gains of this period and keep it, and keep some of the online ministries, and perhaps recognize that maybe online church is something that we could look at, not by itself, but along with how we normally do church. So I think one of the things we should be asking ourselves is what good habits, what good learning should we keep?
For me, the takeaway is just my own personal growth in this time. I've loved being able to do this. I would have never developed this side of myself or the side of the ministry had this not happened. And so it was frightening and daunting, but such a blessing. And it's opened up doors for us as a church that we couldn't have even been hunting for before COVID. So that was really great. We've grown. Our number of people that connect with us online is more than the number of people that were coming to our church during a normal service. So we really feel like our effectiveness has increased. But on the back of that, the other side of that coin is the fact that, for me, the hardest part is not being able to connect with people.
Yeah.
There's a sense when people come back, because our services are open on a Sunday, when they come back for the first time, and I talk to them after the service, they say, it just feels right to be in this place. It just feels right to be with people. Even though I can't hug them and I'm far away from people, it's just right that I'm sitting here in God's house. And we know it's not about the building. We know it's about Christ in us, and we're the body. But there's a sense that people just feel at home. And so that's a good thing. A big regret for me would be that we were a little bit slow in getting our online stuff polished. We also started with the assumption this might be just a couple of weeks or a month or two. And I think if somebody had said, look, this is going to be a year, I think we would have been just a little bit quicker to get stuff polished. But it's okay.
Yes, I see. For me, I want to see COVID as an opportunity for ministry in a very tangible way. So that some of these practices become mainstream and they become ingrained in our way of operation and a way of outreach to our people, so that we can build on them and not relax when it's post-COVID. You know, so the whole issue of involvement of my leadership in terms of, you know, how that they should take care of their little constituencies. The promotion of Bible studies in homes, you know, to encourage the church family or church house, you know, so that they encourage the parents to become the priests and the prophet in those homes.
Yeah.
So those are things that I would want to inspire.
Sure. So the thing that helped sustain me was the fact that I wasn't called to be somebody standing in a pulpit in a certain setting. I came to the realization that I'm called to minister to God's people. And if this was the way that it had to happen, then I was going to try and do that as best as possible. So I'd encourage people to say, you're not called to a platform or a podium or a pulpit. You're really called to minister to God's people. And so see that as, go back to that calling and say, Lord, I am called to serve these people. I'm called to care for these people, but how can I do it in this place? And then ask for help. We've been so blessed that we could connect with other ministers and other people and say, look, this is how we do things. Can we help you set this up? Can we give you something to help you with that? We've been able to help other people, and that's helped us sharpen our ministry here just by sharing. So, for us, that's been a great thing. So don't, you're not on your own. We're all part of the UPCSA, and we're all trying to do what God's called us to do. Don't give up on that. Don't give up on the call. and then ask if there's something you need, guys, and say, I really need help. How can we do this? Yeah.
Yeah. One of the messages that I wasn't very good at, something that I felt I'm not very competent to share, was the issues of hope. I was forced to research on hope. I was forced to speak on issues of fear. And I had to do a series in the book of Psalms, for a whole month, a month or two actually. Wow. And I found that the book of Psalms really speaks to our issues, not sugarcoating anything, just expressing the fears, expressing the uncertainty, expressing, the challenges that man goes through. And so the book of Psalms spoke to me personally very much. And then indeed to the congregation, there was that positive feedback. People were saying, Reverend, as if you know what we are going through now. Others weeping as they're telling you their story. So I realized that in this time, that the church needed was much more encouragement than anything.
But I think for me, the key learning has been how much our congregations value the pastor, the sense of and I guess in my case, because I've been in the congregation a very long time, people have valued incredibly the efforts that I've made to pick up the phone, that they hear my voice or that they see my face, be it on a screen, even a WhatsApp video call, and that kind of intimacy where one connects to people one-on-one and in groups. I think we should never underestimate how valuable that is. And the principle is incarnation. It's being the Word made flesh. And it's what Jesus did for us. And I think it's what we should do for our people. And I've gone out of my way to be very vulnerable during this time, to share with people my own struggles. And I really do believe that has made a difference. But this value of incarnational ministry, of connecting to people, we must never underestimate its power. It's incredibly powerful. It's not so much the content, but the fact that it comes from a trusted shepherd that makes the huge difference.
I think the one is not to, don't allow pride to stop you seeking help and asking for assistance. I think that's very, very important. Ministers do not have to know everything. We don't have to be experts on everything. That's why we have a body, the body of Christ. So I think ministers need to be encouraged to network, to speak to others, to reach out, etc. And then the second thing which I found for myself is that because I made it a priority to connect with some of our members, particularly our leaders and a few others during lockdown, I found that helped me. Because like everyone, I mean, we're all human, and all of us experience the same angst, the same anxiety and distress around lockdown, around our livelihoods, particularly as ministers, because our livelihoods is based on gatherings. So I experienced, I think, what many people would have experienced in terms of stress and worry and anxiety. But I found that by ministering to our members, by journeying with them, by praying with them, that actually the Lord used that to help me. You know, if that makes sense. That by having to almost, there were some days where I had to make myself phone someone or message someone. I kind of didn't want to. I thought, no, I'm exhausted today. I'm emotionally tired. I don't want to do this. I'm stressed. But by kind of forcing myself to do that, I found that ministering to others actually revived my own spiritual life, if that makes sense, you know. So I would encourage any ministers who are really feeling that they are worn out, that they should perhaps, even though it's important to rest, obviously, that they should really persevere with connecting with others, with their own congregation, and offering a listening ear, saying a prayer, helping others, because as we help others, I think the Lord helps us, you know. Yeah.
But I think the second most important thing is that we're all going to have to deal with the reality that change is our new normal. We can't get too fixated on anything, because we still haven't learned everything there is to learn about this virus, and the impact that it's going to have on society. And I think we've got to be willing to call everything an experiment, and to try something until it doesn't work, and then change it up. And a lot of people are trying to make long-term permanent plans and sinking a lot of money into buying equipment and that kind of thing. And I'm saying, be careful. You know, I think change is our new normal, and we'd be better off being super flexible than investing too much in what we think is a solution, only to have things change in a month or two.
And one of the things that I was really emphasizing on is in the words of Isaiah, who says, thick darkness shall cover the earth and the peoples. You know, not just the earth, but the people. So darkness will cover the earth, but it also cover the people. But then it says, but God shall arise.
Yeah.
You know, so that became the scripture we anchored on, but God shall arise. And in this time, we should know that there is a God who, in a tangible manner, will be able to sustain us. And they are giving stories and testimonies now. I was talking to one elder 2 days ago and says, Reverend, I'm not working, but I have 3 meals a day, and I don't know how we've sustained ourselves in this difficult time. Because my daughter was out of employment, and then we're looking to her for support, and then, you know, we didn't know that we can clock 5 months and we're still here and still strong. You know, so their faith had to rise, and that to speak to those and activate their faith, began to actively talk of issues of faith and depending on God on a day-to-day basis.